Thank you, everyone. If I have not had the pleasure of meeting you, I'm Jonathan Tomek. Most people call me Sakiban because that's just been the fun handle that I've had for the past, 20 years, which is crazy in itself. So Michael asked me to speak on anything other than what anybody else is presenting. So I have had an interest in ham radio for a few years, and I'm going to try to do a few things for you. If I'm not sure how many hams there are in this room, but hopefully I can inspire you to become a ham. If not, encourage you to do actually something really good with you having your license. So other than finding something more fun to speak into, I decided that, hey, bring it out there and learn as much as I can within the short amount of time, which is basically a month he gave me and said, hey, go speak. All right. So I just got a new call sign, which is K4RUK, Kilo 4 Romeo Uniform Kilo. You guys should probably try to learn that fun alphabet. If you have not already learned that, it'll really help you, especially when you speak to the foreign language speakers overseas, because it is extremely hard. It's kind of like saying M as in Mancy, doesn't really transition well everywhere. But it's just good to know. So I've cornered the market on the whole Sakibomb name, which is pretty fantastic, except for Reddit, sadly. I have a friend there that just won't hook me up at all. But anyway. If you've ever met me before, it's probably because I have seen you down in ThoughtCon in Chicago. I'm one of the founders down there, and I've been doing that for the past 10 years, and I do quite a lot of things there with whether it's registration, CTF stuff, hanging out with you guys, probably being, I can't swear on TV, I think these are recorded, right? So being a jerk with a lot of you guys, trying to encourage you to learn a lot of different things. My whole primary objective is just to get everybody in here inspired. I want everybody to become a better hacker. That's effectively what it is, and you're going to see that threaded throughout some of this talk. So, just quick question for everyone in here. Who in here is a ham? I just want to see. So there are a couple, so good. I actually do have some people, so I don't have to talk just on the basics. All right. So, to begin, why are you here? I actually really don't know why you're here, but I'm guessing it is with ham radio that excites you, but more importantly, that there really is nothing for you to do right now. I don't really know why you're here. I would not be here. I usually don't even go to talks myself, especially at 8 p.m. But great. But I think this is probably one of the biggest things here is hams are, especially hackers, we're not really community driven as much as we possibly could be. And it's kind of funny because there's people in ham radio, like all the Elmers, all the people that have been doing it for a long time, which is a much older crew, and you have the hackers over here, but that fine sliver down the middle is even smaller than you could imagine. And I do have a couple places that I can help you guys get into to get more involved, because of all the different hacker groups, I think we are probably the most encouraging of everyone that wants to help and will not shame you for not knowing things. I mean, that's most of the hacker community for sure, but absolutely the ham community, just because it's the biggest and booming. So again, I'm here. I want to inspire you and give you something to be passionate about, because that is the biggest thing that I've noticed just throughout my entire time of whether it's presenting or being out in the real world with my normal job, that you very rarely find somebody that's so passionate about doing any hobby. And if I could just give you this much of it, I will feel like I got my job done, and that's the best. So, just for those that are not hams in here, and I'll try to ramp up slowly by the end for those that are hams. Some of the reasons that I personally am a ham is I'm this weird survivalist. I'm a Marine, and I've had to go through several fun experiences and episodes where having a radio and knowing how to use a radio is very, very useful. But also living in DC, we've had some major instances where if you did not have a radio skill, you probably were having a very, very scary time. So we had, other than 9/11, which I'm sure many of you all know about, they cut all the cell phones and nobody was even allowed to communicate out. And not too long ago, actually, I think it was 7 years ago, we had an earthquake in DC, which you wouldn't think. It was like a 3.2 whatever, like nothing ecstatic. Like some of the stuff that you'd just be like, oh, whatever. But apparently it caused so much of a problem that some of the buildings crumbled. It even affected the Washington Memorial, that there were so many emergencies, but all cell phones, including some of the internet, was cut out for a good day. Nobody communicated. It was actually a crazy pandemonium, especially in DC of all places, that you couldn't, like this is the one city you do not want to ever get stuck in, ever, because people are so on edge. It's East Coast, it's like hypertension, traffic, like jams, whatever. But my God, did having a radio like save the day for like, I felt like the biggest thing lifted, because I was talking to my neighbors about it. They were like, I couldn't even get a hold of my kids, didn't even know where they were at school because school's closed, all the different things. So if that's enough to get you going, please do it. It's really, really cool to do. But even bigger than that, other than my survival stuff, because I could go and rant on that for an hour, is just knowing how to use and apply a lot of the things that you learn from Ham in the IoT realm. This is by far the biggest frontier right now. This is where the Wild West is of the internet. I mean, we have so many new things coming out that most people just haven't even touched yet. So this is where I would really want to encourage you to start touching. Just learn some of the fundamentals. Get your license so that you know how to transmit, just so you can do things legally, and then it'll start making a lot more sense about all these different fun things and techniques. It's like grabbing that low-hanging fruit. You're like, oh my God, I can do that and talk on that. People think I'm like a genius. I'm like, oh, no, it's just the way it is. It's just another thing for you to think about. But this will really just bring this whole, bring you all together, because we, in this, like that niche little ham hacker community I was talking about, everybody always wants to talk about all these fun little projects they've been working on. And I've been realizing outside of that even bubble that everyone here rarely even sees some of those fun little projects they talk about, just because nobody goes up and presents on it. I mean, this is another thing. I'd encourage you to even present yourself, because it's going to make you want to learn something and be fearful of, oh my God, do I know enough? Like, I'm the one speaking. I think I have to answer all the questions in the room, or hey, is that guy kind of silly up there? But the thing is, it causes you to have to learn a lot of the answers of the questions that even you yourself need to have. And that group doesn't even present. So I would love for you guys to even get involved in that. It'll really bring us all together. So, the big things with getting really, really involved. Just pick a simple project. This is why I'm trying to inspire you. I have got a couple of them listed right after this, but with that project, it's going to give you enough of something that you've always wanted to do. Whether it's working with some of the most basic technologies, I mean, you need to have something that's going to drive you forward. And this has been every which way in just your typical hacker lifestyle anyway. I mean, I don't know what got you into even being here, but something made you passionate to say, hey, I'm going to go to CypherCon and be here today because there's something I want to learn. That's how you get better at everything. So just find a simple project. If you don't have one, or you're just even a little bit interested, I'll be happy to start you. CTFs are probably the best way to do that. So it helps you start really, really small and work your way up, and then say, you know what, I really just want to work on this project, and it'll really, really enhance your knowledge set. Getting your technician's license is also one of the easiest things you could possibly do. I mean, you need a 73% passing rate to get this exam. I mean, you guys could study for an hour, because I'm sure everybody here is really intelligent. You have to get 26 questions out of 35 just to get this license. It is super, super easy. And that's your first step. I mean, once you get that, I mean, you can start playing and talking on the radio legally. That's any band that is, it's a restricted band for you, but it gets you one step outside of just listening to like the police scanners going, oh, hey, this stuff is whoop-de-doo, cool, I can hear a police officer. But it really opens up your world, and that's that first step that actually gets you like really excited and really gets you going. It's kind of like that feeling you get after you watch like Hackers. You're like, damn, what the hell am I doing? I'm like wasting my life. Why am I like just sitting here when I can totally like be making a guy look dead? I mean, this is simple, fundamental steps. Then get your radio. I mean, this is, people, it can be an extremely expensive hobby. Yes, I totally agree. Like, if you don't know, every hobby that we have is probably really expensive. So, with ham, you can actually start fairly cheap with, I mean, there's a lot of direction here. A lot of the group would be willing to sell you old gear, or you can start with an SDR. You can have some of these fancy things like this Lime SDR, which can literally intercept cell phones and do video and play with it. It's pretty badass. Or you can get this like an RTL SDR, which is like a $10 little Chinese doohickey that you could plug in and start intercepting and transmitting. But it does not, it's not perfect, don't get me wrong. But nonetheless, there's a lot of really cool projects you could do with it. So that's your, like, that next step. And then finally, just getting in this community. And I would love for you to look at the slides itself, because in here, I'm not gonna, I could probably be clicking on it, but I'm not gonna. There's 2 Discord groups that are full of that sliver of hackers that are also hands that I was talking about. And surprisingly, there's it's a global community. Like, some people from Japan, lots from the US, but all over. And they are all willing to really help you with everything that you want to do. So, with that being said, so some of the things that we've all talked about in the group, as well as some of the projects that I wanted to do, are listed up here. And hopefully you guys will see how like actually simple this stuff is. So working with a satellite, everybody's like, how badass is that? Oh yeah, I talk sats all the time. Yeah, like, does that not sound cool? I mean, I think that sounds cool. I mean, my wife thinks I'm an absolute freaking geek, but she's like, yeah, my husband's smart. He's playing with satellites. It's literally no different than like talking to some of these the repeaters. I mean, it's like using a cell phone, except with the repeater towers, but you're just doing it with the radio. But some of the really, really cool things you can do with just working with satellites is you can start downloading a lot of imagery. You can work with a lot of the free ones that are out there. Universities launch them. They're like CubeSat programs, and it's a huge world. I mean, there's parts where you can sell, they sell time that you could even download imagery of fun locations. And this is kind of a fun fact that I don't know if you guys know is, I guess it's legal, but it's pseudo-legal. There's groups that will sell you imagery time to take pictures of any place on the world for very, very, very low amounts of money. And we're talking like, I don't know, like $10. And there's places that our government doesn't want you to take pictures of, but you kind of have to play with your hand to be able to know how to do that stuff. So I'm just letting you know that those options are out there. If you are really interested in, say, I don't know, nuclear silos in China, or anyway. So it's fun stuff to do, and I highly encourage it. I included some of the links on here so you guys can see some of the programs and how to use like a satellite tracking program. It's really, really basic. Sadly, some things are really, really Windows reliant, and I hate to say that, but that's just because the community is involved that way. But virtual machines all the way, it's totally okay. A lot of stuff is also Linux based. There's a lot of really cool programs that are free you can use, but anyway. Next, this is probably one of the biggest ones that actually gets a lot of people kind of annoyed in the ham community, which is digital modes, because is it really radio if you're using it through the internet? So this little radio is a lot of fun because you can use it with they're like Pi gates. You just buy a little Raspberry Pi and this little $50 thing. And yes, I'm transmitting a little radio wave to this thing, and then it goes straight through the internet. But it lets you do a lot of these time modes that makes the actual audio and the videos clearer. But I mean, this is how the internet is. I mean, you could also set up a big repeater and do this stuff. But with traditional hackery, that's literally why it exists. So I highly recommend checking it out. That's probably one of the simplest and easiest to use methods, other than just the traditional like single sideband. Once you start playing with your ham radio, that's the first thing you'll probably want to do. That is, yeah, so DMR is one of the bigger ones. There's D-Star, there's WinLink, which sadly might even disappear one day, very soon, but who knows. The next is this thing called PSK31, which is a phase shifting key. This is a really, really cool method of protocol. So hopefully everybody in here knows what a protocol is, like TCP, IP, like this is your standard of how data is going to flow. It's actually extremely inefficient for anything because we have the internet, we have the ability to have tons of loss, packet loss, etc. PSK31 allows you to send data, but let's say I wanted to send a really short message to you that was just like, wow, or hello world. Every byte that you send, you don't want to have too much overhead. So if I was going to send an A, that'd be like a 1 bit. But then if I wanted to send a B, it'd kind of be following up binary level, but you always are dropping a bunch of the bits. So a B would be a 1, 0, a C would be a 1, like you wouldn't even actually, it'd be like 1, 0, 0, 1. It always ends in a 1 and always ends, it starts with a 1, so that you're eliminating all that data loss. So it's a pretty cool little protocol to learn, and it might be one that you should learn if you like CTFs. Especially ones that I like to run. So check it out. Next, this one is really, really cool. And if you have not heard of Ampernet, look into this. This is basically free internet IPv4 space because we're already gone with all of that. But it is internet over ham. It's actually seen in a bunch of different formats, but super slow, works for IRC, email, it surprisingly does VoIP. I really don't know how because it's really crappy quality, but it does work. It does work. I use it for IRC, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of like one of those things that I wanted to actually set up because I wanted the oh crap moments where you're like, hey, everything went down. Can I send out a quick email or something or a message out and then have it trigger back wherever it is. That's the what's that? The dead man switch concept. I thought it was fun. I don't know why I do those things. I mean, do you guys do that stuff? Maybe I'm just geek. But anyway, Ampernet, really, really cool. And within Ampernet, there's really big communities that use. If you have anybody in here who's used Ubiquity, like they'll actually replace the firmware completely and start this massive like network. Like there's a big one up like in the Seattle area. There's one in like Europe, and it's literally, in my opinion, that's actually what a true darknet is, more so than Tor, because you don't have to rely on anything on the internet. These are true internet, like separate internet communities that all leverage their own data, but it still requires ham to do, even though the radio signals can be over Wi-Fi. For whatever reason, it's the amount of power that they need. And then the complete reverse of that is this thing called QRP mode. And, I didn't even explain what QRP stands for, but in ham, they have a lot of really short notations, and it's part of what CW is, like Morse code. Whenever you're sending messages, you want to be as fast as possible, so you really like crush everything down into like 3 letters. And so QRP just means low power mode. And a lot of really cool things can happen with this. This is probably one of those, oh yeah, I did that, but no, I don't think I will ever do this stuff just because it's extremely difficult. Like the fact that somebody can use a microwatt to send something 1,650 miles is like absolutely bonkers. We're talking, that is less power than a analog watch uses. Like, think about that for a second. Like, I don't know how the hell somebody did that, but you have to have, like, the timing, you gotta know, like, where the sun is, and, like, be high up, and, like, all this damn stuff. And, like, people do this stuff. But this also includes, like, moonshots, like, shooting up your power up to the moon, bouncing off of that. A lot of people do this. It's a fun little hobby, and you actually get listed in record books, which, hey, more power to you, but it's still something really, really cool, just something for you guys to look into. That's also where like LoRa comes from, if you guys ever played with that. That's the legal non-ham like data stuff to play with if you ever want to send like low power, long range messages or data. All right, so the things to do with ham, and this is where this will get you really going, is definitely play the CTFs, like I was saying earlier. We have one going on right here. Super easy to get involved. Everybody on that team wants you to learn. They're there to help you. And the equipment that they give you, if you win, is like worth thousands upon $1,000. It's worth more than like you guys would ever want to like spend yourselves, but the equipment is really solid. But it also teaches you a lot of fun fundamentals that and gives you more projects that you didn't really think about. And like the fox hunts, if you ever watch somebody walking around the room, they're like, with their laptop, like, what the hell is this guy doing? He's like, hey, are you the fox? No, I'm not the fox. What are you talking to me for? It gets a little creepy, but hey, whatever. But that's what they're doing. They're trying to find a signal and triangulate a signal, except they're not triangulating if it's a single line. So that's where a Yagi comes into play. And hopefully anybody, if you don't know what a Yagi is in here, that's that one metal little bar that has all those lines in it that you can direct point-to-point shoot. That's going to give you the best power for your distance ratio. And with that, you pair up with people and you can triangulate. And there are really cool programs out there, Hint or Write One, that can help you triangulate extremely fast if there's a fast moving object or you really want to triangulate stuff faster. And there's, in the ham world, because we are self-regulating, which is such a funny and bad idea at the same time. But hams are traditionally like really good about being hams. Like you're not supposed to do that. I don't like we're all policemen, but at the same time we do look the other way. But yet there's really bad people that are doing like these pirate radio stations in like California that get fined like hundreds of thousands of dollars. That have been doing it for like 15 years and not like have not been caught. Like what the hell? But hey, what's that saying? It's keeping honest people honest. Hams are like the most honest of people. I don't know why, but the why I was going with that is within that self-policing group, there's volunteers that do these fox hunts for people that are breaking the ham code of they're breaking actual violations, doing too much power, like you can't go over 1,500 watts, which is a lot anyway. That's like that would give you a headache just to walk by. But people do this stuff. That's the old CB radios, like nasty stuff. But they usually have groups of people that will be ones and twos, and they can triangulate by using these programs and pinpoint exactly, and it's really, really quick. That's actually how the GPS tracking in your phone works, more so than just the GPS tracker. They just use cell phone technology to triangulation. So, other than me tangenting on CTF stuff, please check it out. Just, you could probably check out some of the simple problems that they have and be like, oh, I did this in 30 seconds or 30 minutes. And you're like, I learned and got passionate about that one new thing. my next thing there is the number station. And I tried the audio on here, so I apologize. I wanted to play it for you, but I could probably, if you want, I'll speak to you in number station in Russian, because, I mean, why not? But there's several, well, more than several, famous number stations. This is probably one of the coolest, like, if you are ever into like those science fiction or like all about figuring out like spies and stuff, they have numerous number stations that still exist. And what they are is, traditionally a number station is just numbers that you hear over the radio waves, whether it's FM or single sideband, just you hear it and it's just like 1, 7, 3, and you just hear this consistently, and people think it literally could be anything, or it could just be trolls, which I really believe there are still trolls out there just doing it for fun. I mean, especially in Russia. I mean, what better way to like throw off the US than like have these numerous amounts of numbers that just get big blasted for years. I think also some of the people like died and like just let it go because they're still on battery backups, and for whatever reason nobody cared to take them down. But they still are kind of fun, and people still try to figure out what the hell they're doing, and sometimes they actually figure them out. So one of the most popular ones is the Russian man, and you can still hear that if you picked up most radios, you can hear it pretty well at night because of the way the atmosphere works. And I will not bore you until you get your ham license with all my fun ham knowledge about how atmospheric conditions work and sunspots and stuff like that. But that's going to be your most opportune time to hear anything from overseas. You can actually hear Japan like probably about 30 minutes after sun goes down. It's really cool. Can't talk to them.
Which ones did they figure out?
He asked which number stations have they figured out. I think there was one, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, they found out some guy died, and the radio station's numbers were like a countdown to, oh God, what was it? It was surprisingly something really stupid. So I hate to even bring that one up, but that was like one of them. But at the same time, you're kind of like, I love the mystery of figuring out what this number station is, but damn, I figured it out and it's really crap. But maybe, just maybe, one of them is going to be really badass. And I kind of want, and maybe I'm going to do this in the following year, but I want to take one of the number station if it repeats itself. Maybe it's like pi or something, and I can like crack that code. But hear the number station sequence and then use that for a puzzle. So maybe, just maybe, I'll do that. But no, that was the one that I think I remember, if I remembered it correctly, was the exact case. Pardon me. All right. So next is this is where the lowest hanging fruit really comes in for ham. If you have not had an opportunity to see Open Sesame by Sammy, really probably one of the best hacking inspirational videos that you'll see in the past 10 years, hands down. He took, I think it was his sister's or his daughter's old little like speak and spell toy, and was able to make it open up any garage door. Any garage door. And the work through, the process to how he figured that out was just freaking badass. And just to give you a little like flow on this, he just listened to the frequency, and you can figure out, hey, I can send these bits and bytes. So he just cloned his the garage door opener, the first one, and then he's like, okay, well, let's figure out the protocol. Okay, I got the protocol down. Now I can just blast all the bytes. Okay, it'll take 20 hours to open up any garage door, which is an enormous amount of time. Okay, well, how do we compress that? We'll figure out all of the exact number of bytes. Okay, well, that hastened it up, but then he ends up figuring out all the way down to the bare bones of it, that there's this really cool mathematical formula that somebody recommended to him that's like way smarter than all of us in this room, that's like super over there. Figured out that airwaves are kind of like this receive all, that similar to how you can do like MAC spoofing on Wi-Fi, where you can have 2 or more of the same MAC addresses on a Wi-Fi network because it doesn't know how to connect to the specific device and still communicate. It's similar for that of garage doors, it's just always listening, waiting for the exact right bytes. So let's say I was going to send, the opening code was like 1110 or whatever it was. It's listening for that exact number. So he figured out, this mathematical guy, figured out the exact equation so that you could say, I have something that's 32 bytes long, and I need to use all the possible combinations ever of that binary sequence and transmit them. So it would be like this random ass like 1010 sequence that would literally open in the garage door in like 3 seconds. Which totally defeats the whole 20-hour thing, and all on this little kid's toy. You're like, damn, that inspires me. I could never do that. He said that same thing. Please check stuff out like that. It's really, really cool. And on there, this is why I hint at this gas fireplaces thing. Like, wouldn't it be kind of funny if you're like driving down the road and you just push a button because like all of like these people's gas-powered like fireplaces have a radio frequency, and they all are labeled. Like you could look this stuff up online. It's not hard to read some of this. You just push in, everybody's like fireplace turns on. You're like, what the fuck? Like, did you do that? No, but I mean, there's other uses for it other than trolling people. I mean, I kind of like the trolling concept, but I wanted to always do it so that I get lazy and I just be like, hey Alexa, okay Google, will you set the mood? Because I'm not going to pay like $500 for a stupid little like Wi-Fi like remote starter when I can just like click a button. But anyway, and last is this power meter on the right, and this is I can't talk too much about this project that I worked on other than there's this fun thing called breaking the cyberkinetic barrier. And what that effectively is something in the digital realm that affects something in the physical realm, breaking the kinetic barrier, as it says. So when you were kids, you probably remember meter maids walking around to your house and checking the meter saying, hey, this person uses this much like gas or electricity, whatever it is, and they go home. Well, those jobs don't exist anymore. I don't know if anybody really noticed that, but something I noticed after I was like, you know what? It was like some drunken conversation, I don't know. And you start reading up all these open specs, and you can find out that a lot of these devices have very, very cool ways of communicating all of the data. And they actually are both receive and transmit. So you can do a lot of bad things, like cause massive blackouts because everybody has the same power company in these areas. Just saying. So it scared a few people, so that's why I can't tell you too much detail about it, but I'll tell you that there's no way to fix any of these problems. Just throwing that out there. It's not like you could just update firmware on like millions, I mean, what are we at, like 200 plus million people in the US, but not everybody has all that, but nonetheless, you're talking still millions of houses, don't even know what everybody has, but totally recommend looking at this, and this would be like that fun thing, you're like, you know what, hey, I heard this guy talk about this, maybe this could be done. Oh my God, what a way to talk at any conference. There you go, that's your first fun there. And then on the left, I didn't put it up there, but Goetzman, which is like an actual new like way to transmit with like your cell phone. Like you can make this mesh network of phones, but using those devices. And basically somebody actually popped them all and was able to do anything they want with them, even though they're encrypted. But these are used in a lot of countries, which I didn't even know. There's like a micro black market, like especially in like Puerto Rico for some reason because of like the massive hurricane that happened there. So those things were selling for like $1,000 a pop, which is absurd because you could get them for like $60. But they needed them because there was no way to communicate with anybody, like I was saying, for that survivalistic trait. But hey, wouldn't it be really cool if you could just play with some of this stuff and then give a talk on it? Well, yeah, that's exactly why I'm talking about it. All right, so this is where I guess the those that are already hams probably should care. This is where I'm gonna, I guess, take a more serious note. For those that are hams, you should probably really know about what's going on with the new FCC regulations that are going on. And for those that are not hams, you should probably care about some of these things that are going on. Our FCC is a nightmare right now, but actually it's probably, well, yeah, you think? It's no different than it's ever been, but for whatever unknown reason, they're deciding, let's apply all of these things that we could possibly do and be like, move stuff along. And I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. Not that, I don't know if any of you know what this means here, but in this, what the FCC is trying to do, they're trying to pass this resolution, and it's supported by an interesting group. Some are hams, yes, and others are not, but I'm going to say most are not. They're trying to make ham only accessible, like everything that's transmitted over there has to be completely open. And this is, I know that's not, you're like, oh yeah, open source, like whatever's fine. It actually is way, way more ridiculous than that. It means like, you cannot use like PSK31. Like, why? Like, do you not understand it? It's like, you can't use Bitcoin because I don't understand it. That is like the dumbest reason to not use something. It's like their concept behind it is, hey, terrorism's bad. Actually, no. All this stuff is bad. Just, I don't understand it. Stop doing it. It should only be for voice. Like, the internet's not for voice only. It's for fucking anything you want to do. So, check this out. Like, this is why the more hams that can exist, and I keep pushing that. I sound like a broken record. It just get involved. Like, just learn about what's actually going on, because this could be actually tremendously difficult down the way. I mean, imagine if this could put a halt on a bunch of different types of protocols and new technologies that you guys could eventually, or your kids or whomever, would try to create. So I want you to look and read about some of this stuff, and you can actually make comments even though you're not a ham. It's just, it's really interesting to note some of these things that are happening. So I can only imagine if they're trying to do this in an area that most people are, like, obviously it's amateur, you're not getting paid, but it's a small enough market space that most people are not going to like have too much of an impact. But imagine if this is going to happen, like, not going to say the net neutrality thing because that's a whole nother realm, but imagine if they passed something here, but it was just that one more step into affecting the rest of it. Like, oh hey, but we started doing it over in this realm, why aren't we doing it over here? Because the law is already this way. That's the sort of thing that's going to happen. So that's why I want some of you guys to look into this stuff. There's an actual name for what is it called? It's RM 11831. So it's something to read about and look into. Okay. So with that, oops. One of the other fun things is, for those that are not hams, encryption. And I'm not going to like ask all of you guys what you guys think about encryption, but I will say that you're not supposed to do encryption over the air. It's kind of like this fundamental ham code. It's actually illegal, but encryption is a very funny word, actually. They don't intend to say encryption. It's one of the bylaws. And it says you're not supposed to obfuscate the meaning of your transmission. So, if I was going to speak in super twin code to you saying, the bird flies at midnight, like that, could that be obfuscating a meaning? I don't know. If you're a twin, you totally get what you're talking about. I mean, it seems a little funny.
Like a number station?
Like a number station. Like, imagine that. Like, this stuff just exists. And it exists in the US too, so I don't know where they're getting this. But then they also go to say that the encryption level is also one of those things. But if you publish your keys, so for example, you saw earlier I was talking about how you can have Wi-Fi over ham. Well, that's if you use nulled out encryption keys. If you wanted to use SSH or SSL, which is like, what the hell's the point at that point? But the thing is, if you also publish your encryption key, that's just as okay, wouldn't you think? Technically it is, and like the ham world, like a lot of people go to argue that. The funny thing is they're super against that obfuscation of the meaning, which is even more concise. I mean, lawyers like fight over all this crap anyway. But with that being said, there's the next bit, which is if I have a special repeater anywhere and you wanted to speak with it and transmit, because that's something you're allowed to do as a ham and make it open to everybody else, how do I communicate with that remote device if it's in the mountains securely so that nobody knows, or so nobody like breaks into it and does whatever they want with it? You have to do encryption, wouldn't you think? So that's actually one of those really like broad gray lines that a lot of hams like tend to like abide by, that you can remote in encryptedly to this device, but everything else has to be completely open and you're not allowed to like talk and code with your friends. Anyway. So if you want to disagree with me, I would love to have a debate with you, because I think that's kind of like how I roll with it. But so anyway, I don't want to bore you too much any longer because we're getting closer. So with that, for those that are attending ThoughtCon, listen up. So I found this project which has the most absolutely unfortunate name. That is a person using Raspberry Pi and slow scan television, which is SSTV. And they're from Netherlands, so they don't really know what they're talking about. But if you lowercase everything and you put Pi SSTV all together, you have a very misspelled word. And it's a fun little project that I'd like you to check out. Yeah. I mean, he's from Amsterdam. I mean, like, how would you really know? I mean, you should know, but nonetheless. Totally look into that project. That might be something I'm playing with. If not, it's for your edification. Also, Morse code. So this is one of those things that I really enjoy. And you don't actually need to know CW to be able to get your ham license, by the way. That was something that was removed from the license requirement a few years ago. So, but what's really cool about Morse code is a lot of people still do it, and it's kind of like one of those cool things that you can like start hearing, and you're like, oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, you're totally a nerd then. But what I like to do with that is I like to do automatic listening of it and being able to repeat some of that back, because that's all legal. Like, you're allowed to do a lot of these repeating and playing as long as you transmit your call sign back. So fun stuff for you guys to look into. It's kind of a really cool little method. And I might be doing a little fox hunter too, because it's going to be a little bit harder than you think. There'll be an easy one and a hard one. So know how to do a fox hunt the ways that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so without boring you guys too much more, I really would like to thank you for coming to this really late 8 p.m. talk, especially on a Thursday night before even a longer day, and drinking ahead. So thank you all, and one little other hint for CypherCon, that I was sponsored by Illumino Pi. Okay, that doesn't mean anything to anybody here, so don't worry about it. You'll figure it out later. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for attending, and I'm going to stay up here for questions, or I'll be happy to stand up here if you have any questions. If you just want to dialogue about how much you disagree with me, or I'm boring, or some other fun things, and maybe I'll give you a couple other projects, feel free to go or come up, whatever you want to do. Just thank you. Thank you, guys.